listening to
Catholic Sprouts,
the daily podcast for Catholic kids that strives to plant seeds of faith.
Greetings, young Squire Sprouts. Today is the 22nd day in the third month in the year of our Lord 2025. My name is Sir Rolland, and you're listening to Saturdays with Sir Rolland on Catholic Sprouts, where every Saturday we discuss the art of dragon slaying. Today we continue through our journey of the greatest story ever told, looking through the lens of dragon slaying and pointing out where each of the 7 deadly dragons shows up in the story. First, we spotlighted the first man, Adam, and how he was wounded by the red dragon of pride. Then we saw how the first couple, Adam and Eve, had 2 sons, and one of them, Cain, was badly wounded by the orange dragon of envy, so much so that the blue dragon convinced him to slay his brother Abel. Today we turn our focus to one holy family who was tasked with slaying the yellow dragon of sloth. After Cain killed Abel, the world populated, not just with people, but with dragons. The people were in league with the dragons. Sin was everywhere. Corruption was everywhere. So much so that God regretted the creation he had made. Remember that God took a chance when he created Adam and Eve by giving them free will. And that free will is what gave them the ability to love, because love is a choice. But love is also risky, because there's always the possibility that the one you love may not love you back. You must freely love them, and they must freely love you back. Or they may use that free will to choose dragons. And that is what happened to everyone on the earth. They chose dragons over God. They broke the covenant God had made with mankind, except for one righteous man named Noah and his family. In Noah, God saw a man who was faithful, and so God decided to spare the human race by starting over with Noah and his family. He came to Noah and told him to build a huge boat so that he could carry out his plan to destroy all the living creatures on the earth that had become so wicked and corrupt by sending a flood. Here's the instructions God gave to Noah from Genesis chapter 6, verses 14 through 22. Build an ark of gopher wood and divide the ark into compartments and caulk it with bitumen inside and out. This is how you should make it. The ark will be 300 cubits long, 50 wide, and 30 high. Make a roof on the ark, 1 cubit high. Place a door in the side of the ark. Make it with 3 decks, lower, middle, and higher. Behold, I will send a flood. The water shall cover the earth to destroy the life of everything under the skies that has the breath of life in it. Everything on the earth shall perish, but I will establish a covenant with you. Go into the ark, you and your sons, your wife, and the wives of your sons. Bring into the ark 2 of everything that lives, of all flesh. Bring a male and female of each species into the ark to save them. Bring 2 birds of each species, 2 animals of each species, and 2 reptiles of each species with you to save them. As for you, gather every type of food and take it with you. It shall nourish both you and them. Noah did all of this exactly as God had commanded him. Now, God gave some very specific instructions to Noah that required a lot of time, effort, and work to build. Can you imagine building a boat that big without electric tools? That thing was 300 cubits long. Let me put that in English for you Americans. That's almost 1.5 football fields long. I mean, they were probably going to be on that ark for many months, so I'm sure Noah wanted his sons to be able to play football games on the upper deck while they're waiting for the waters to subside. But the last verse there is very important. Noah did all of this exactly as God had commanded him. The first 2 characters we spotlighted, Adam and Cain, were badly wounded by dragons. But in Noah, we see our first success story. He had to have been tempted by the red dragon of pride when God told him he was the only righteous man on the earth. Or maybe he was tempted by envy when everyone else was eating, drinking, and being merry while he was slaving away for many months trying to build a huge boat when it wasn't even raining yet. Or maybe he was tempted by wrath when the people made fun of him for wasting his time. But I'm certain he was tempted by the yellow dragon of sloth, Acadia. The yellow dragon was our focus this week of Lent, and I hope you were successful like Noah in overcoming sloth. It all comes down to obedience and trust. Each character in the Bible can teach us something about the dragons, and about life, and about ourselves. Let's see what made Noah successful here in slaying the yellow dragon and persevering in this incredible task to save his family from the floodwaters of death. Step number 1, he heard God's voice. Now, you might think that was easy for Noah because in the Bible, it sounds like God just is having a vocal conversation with Noah. It just says, God said to Noah. Perhaps God did speak to Noah audibly. Sometimes he gives that gift to people, but most of the time God speaks to our hearts, and perhaps God spoke to Noah in prayer. We don't know for sure, but I do know the chances are for you and me, we will have to listen to that inner voice which only comes to us in prayer. Before we can obey God's commands, we have to receive his instructions. Here's a little secret. The world is noisy, but God whispers. To hear God's instructions, you must turn off the noise of the world and spend time in prayerful silence. God was the architect for the ark. He's also the architect for your life. Get the plans before you take action. This is key. I'll admit, I don't like reading directions. Like a typical guy, when I have to assemble something, I just assume I can figure it out myself and I jump right in. But ultimately what happens is I miss a step or two, and that bicycle ends up not having any pedals on it. Then I have to take it apart and start over. Reading directions takes time at first, yes, but it saves more time later. Prayer may seem to take time out of your busy schedule, but in reality, prayer helps you determine what's important in your life and what is a waste of time. It helps you get the specific instructions God has for your life. So in the end, it creates more time for you to do what matters most. Step number 2, Noah had to be obedient to God's directions. You too must be obedient, and be joyfully obedient to God and those he puts in authority over you. That certainly means your mom and dad. They give you a command, you obey. Step number 3, perseverance. You must complete the task, even when it's hard, even when it's not popular, even when it seems like you're missing out on what your friends are doing, even when you don't see the point, even when you don't feel like it. Perseverance, passion, and zeal are essential to slaying the yellow dragon and all the dragons. Lent is a great time to practice this prayerful obedience. Keep working hard on your Lenten sacrifices. We're entering the middle of the race, and it's tempting to relax, to slow down, or lose passion, the passion you started with. But don't quit. This week, my challenge for you is to be joyfully obedient to your parents when they ask you to do something. No complaining, no dragging your feet, just a joyful yes, sir, or yes, ma'am. You can call them mom and dad if you want. You don't have to call them sir and ma'am. But come back next week because our story is going to continue. God established a covenant with Noah, using the rainbow as the sign of the covenant. Those 7 colors that remind us God promised not to destroy the earth with a flood again. But we find out that Noah, though he was righteous, still had Adam's cowardly blood running through his veins. And when God told Noah to be fruitful and multiply, guess who else started to multiply? The dragons. We'll turn our attention to another man who God turned to establish yet another new covenant to face the dragons of the world, including the giant green dragon of greed. And until next week, I'll leave you under the protection of St. Michael the Great Archangel, St. Joseph the Terror of Dragons, and Mary, Queen of the Angels, Our Lady of Grace, and the woman whose seed crushed the head of the dragon.
That's it for Catholic Sprouts today. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, continue to grow in your faith and truly sprout into the beautiful creation that God created you to be.
Hey, parents and kids, just a reminder to check out our new free streaming platform, dragonslayers.tv, to see all kinds of Dragon Slayers content, with more stuff being added all the time. During Lent only, we have our Lenten read aloud of all the 7 books, so log in and join us in the stories while they're still available. If you're not in our training guild, to receive our weekly emails and resources, please register for free at extraordinarymission.com/dragonslayers. And remember, listen to Catholic Sprouts every day, including Saturdays with Sir Rolland.
This podcast is part of the Spoke Street Network. For more great podcasts, visit spokestreet.com.